Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
We'll figure out something.
Okay, so let's talk about money.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do is just have like an
Money,
informal,
money.
fun chat about money and wealth building stuff, because I keep hearing from not only our agents, but our admin people, that they hear it and they see it, but they don't get it. So we had Lou come in and talk about taxes and saving money that way. Now we're gonna talk about what to do with all the money Lou Piccione's tips are creating for you, and what to do with it. So clearly we can't do an exhaustive, I mean, there's so many different ways to build wealth, and we can't get super in-depth around, registered accounts, non-registered accounts, all that kind of stuff. We will touch on all of them, but the caveat to all of this stuff is the same caveat that I would give you if you were talking about changing health habits and skills. You should understand the process. You should always go to a coach. You should always have a professional sort of monitor everything. And like anything in phys ed or anywhere else, you start with baby steps. So once you understand it and once you get that there are some things you could do, then you can start building more and more complex systems. But as you build them, if you understand the basics, then when an accountant or a lawyer or a financial advisor says, let's start talking about these kinds of strategies, they're not going to be totally foreign to you, right? And they all work around, kind of the same principles. You want to make more money than you spend. And then you want to take that excess and you want to make it work. And you want to make it work hard. And you wanted to do things, but we'll get into all that kind of stuff. So everybody defines this differently. For you, what is wealth? How would you define wealth? Anyone in the room?
Your net worth?
Net worth? So if your net worth was $1,000,
Okay.
To me, it's your disposable income.
disposable income? Okay. So if you've got $3,000 a year to dispose of, you would consider that to be wealthy?
Okay, well, you've got, excess inflow every month and year above what you need to run your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So that's wealth building.
So Miriam's describes it, and I love this, because we talk about this in Keller Williams, right? It's an abundance. So it's an abundance of material assets that are above and beyond what you need to pay for regular lifestyle stuff. So this is where we get into it's way more than what I need. And you can then take that idea and apply it to things other than money, right? So you can have an abundance of energy and goodwill. I would argue that makes you wealthy in lots of really meaningful ways. But what we're going to talk about today really is money, and you want to not just have enough, and you don't want to have a little bit more than what you want it to be abundant. You want it to be something that becomes a powerful tool. And the sort of following question is why? Is anybody in here sort of interested in money for money's sake? Is there anybody that wants to die as the person who has more money than any of their friends?
Something to be said for that, right?
One friend. Yeah. I mean, really, for us, and I think what attracts a lot of people to a Keller Williams kind of work environment is that it's not for the money itself; it's for the good it can do. And this was something that the longer I was taking different either business planning clinics or whatever through the KW systems, you really start to hear this at a big level with the Gene Rivers of the world, where they went from literally like everything dropped out of the markets, and anybody that had a good real estate business got wiped out. And the realigning that does in your priorities, where you sit back and say, so I now know what it's like to start from zero, and I can rebuild again, but you know what? I wanna make sure that never happens to me, and more importantly, I wanna make sure it doesn't happen to anybody around me. So in my world, would it be cool if I could have enough wealth, and this is something that Mo Anderson had said once, where no matter who in my family or in my neighborhood came to me and said, we've had a tragedy and this is the cost and we're going to lose our home, at what point would I be able to write that check and not worry about it? And that was what, you know, she wanted to get to, was not to have it, but to be able to give it, and to give it freely and to never expect it back. And I think that's a kind of a cool way of picturing what wealth looks like. In your lives, what would wealth for you look like? Heidi, what would being wealthy, what would that look like for you?
Oh, having more properties, like as far as my assets, having a lot of assets paid off. I could always fall back if the world, if everything came up from underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So investments to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
assets that
very
you can get
assets.
rid of if you need to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the hard assets.
Yeah, yeah. Deborah, how about you?
It's, gives you peace and a sense of security.
Mhm. David, what would wealth look like for the young
It's
family?
security. That's the main thing.
Mhm.
Peace of mind.
Yeah. It's interesting how that comes through as a theme. Donna, how about for you?
Fame, no debt, just
Nothing to worry about.
very much like Mo, just being able to like think about what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, peace of mind so you can support others, right?
Well, and that's the interesting thing in this, is we kind of dig down in that whenever somebody says peace of mind. Generally, I've asked you this question directly before when we were talking in our mastermind group, and it's, you know, peace of mind for me and my children and my grandchildren. And that gets to, you know, the newest part of the KW mission, right? So we used to end with experiences worth giving, and now we added in, a year and a half ago, legacies worth
I didn't
leaving.
know that was me. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so the Canadians were a big part of that being added into the P&G manual. So having that idea of a legacy, you know, what would I have done? And it sounds huge. It sounds like you're talking billions and millions of dollars, but really, if you're doing things in a simple enough way, if it's sort of a couple properties or whatever, over the span of the rest of your working lives, you can totally take those ideas and break them into real workable solutions. So the keys to building wealth. What do you think? Where do we start?
That was my answer.
That's
My
my
answer
answer.
was to keys to building wealth as far as investment properties
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, starting.
Why building is different too.
Yeah, starting with the plan. And you hear us talk about this a lot, right? What is your big why? So if you take a different approach, and this is where I'm going to challenge you, because we're often surrounded in real estate and in business building seminars and other education with kind of intangibles, right? So again, like all of these things are great things to work with, but none of them have a number attached to them. And when I'm talking to Natasha or the front desk folks at Advantage or wherever where I've run a similar version of this, if you get to start to think about monetizing your dreams, it doesn't take away from them, it doesn't take the power or the beauty away from them. What it does is makes them more achievable. So when we're talking about the big why, I ran through this process with Holly Priestner last year when she was the director of Canadian operations for KW, and I've always had a very clear big why. So it's to create an endowment fund so that the Canadian Turner Syndrome Society can be a self-funding organization, because right now they rely on sort of different levels of funding from different levels of government, and it changes all the time. And she said, that's amazing, tell me about Turner Syndrome and the Turner Syndrome Society, and we went through all that stuff, and she said, so how much would that cost? It was the first time, and I'm always a numbers guy, the first time I had to sit down and go, yeah, like what would that cost? And we kind of worked through some numbers, and we got to a point where I said, if I had $1 million sitting in an account, and it was running through GICs and some other things that would never touch the principal, that would be enough money to pay for an executive director's salary every year in perpetuity. But it was the first time I had to like sit down and scratch it out and go, okay, $1 million, that's it. So beyond all of our other things, I have this $1 million thing. And the next thing she said is, great, when? And you go, okay, another number. So I have to come up with that. And she said, is 5 years realistic? I said, that's, you know what, so it's gonna take me this time to get the brokerage stable. Yeah, 5 years probably sounds perfect. And she said, so can you think of activities that you could do outside of your business plan that would create another $200,000 a year in passive or active income? And I went, oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in our world, that's 8 houses. That's 8 extra houses a year. And if I just put that money aside and did nothing else with it, 5 years from now, that would be $1 million and we're done. You sit back and go, that's so simple. So it's cool, but it starts with your plan and whatever your individual big why is, and then turning that into a monetized plan of action. So a plan is great, but it has to be split up into measurables. And they have to be trackable. And in any sort of wealth building plan, those measurable and trackable things really should come to a yes or no. So if I've said within 3 years I will hit this certain dollar value of something, and I check every quarter, the check-in is, am I at this point yet? Yes or no? It's not, you take all the emotion out of it. It's not a why didn't you, or what changed. It's just, okay, well, I'm either on track or I'm off track. And then really, and this is our biggest challenge is implementing. And that's why, outside of something that's super simple, that's why you want to get your set of coaches on board. So if you have a real estate coach, you share that goal with them and they'll help keep you accountable to it. If you're not sharing it with that coach, and I think you should, you definitely, your accountant, your wealth manager, your financial advisor, your lawyer, they should all be in on this, because they're all going to have something that they can help contribute, and they'll help keep you accountable. Because every year when you do your check-in with your accountant, it shouldn't just be about taxes. It should be, and here's where we are in this other part of the plan. Does that make sense? So have a clear plan, break it into measurable goals, and then implement it. 5 steps to developing great money management skills.
Just say no.
Just say no. Make your money accountable. Yeah, for sure. For sure, that's in there.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's,
that's actually a good idea.
they're doing universal,
This is a test of the Ontario Alert Ready system. There is no danger to your health or safety. If this was an actual emergency, you would now
Oh,
hear
right.
instructions for protecting yourself.
It is there.
Only some carriers do.
I just have my,
www.ontario.ca.
I have my, but
How much else?
how about
I didn't get
having a budget that breaks down to the lowest level, like weekly?
CC acute urgence rail. When tenders and
That's
on-day
weird.
instructions for
That
Bucro
means
Yeah,
you're
set
gonna
it
get warnings when
Corey
the
and
world's
Zeb
falling
plus
apart.
Just
service
turn your
messages
volume
alert Fellas Consulter www.ontario.ca/alert.
What's your stop?
I have it, but it's, didn't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's a delay. That's a bell.
You have your sound button off?
You're blown up already, you're too late.
Yeah.
That's right.
so before the budget comes, you've got to know your numbers. And you've heard that a lot in the month of November. So we've talked over the last few weeks about you having a business budget and everything else, and knowing what your income is, knowing what your expenses are, having that broken down. Has anybody in here actually sat down and done a real sort of asset classing financial, typically it's called a financial disclosure form?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Many times.
How much fun was it?
Well, it gets more funner the older you get. It wasn't so fun 20 years ago. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm very poor.
It's painful to go through this process, but it's really interesting, because what you'll find is that what you think your budget is, it's not your budget. What you think your expenses are, no way, no day. Because you
I don't
get
want to know.
the
That's why I'm
minutia.
doing it.
So we just did
You
this.
should do it.
We just did it for our RBC Wealth Management Group. It's about 18 pages long when it's done properly. And it gets into like ridiculous fun things. Well, so
You must have
here's,
a lot of stuff.
no, let's throw some fun ones. How much do you spend on nails a year?
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no,
How
this
much-
is true.
How much do you
All
spend on
your-
nails a year? What do you think it is?
3 to
And if
5
you had to actually go
Isn't
through
that
it,
any fun?
how much do you think
I-
you spend on hair?
I spend
A
like
lot.
$5,000 on hair.
Right.
But I know that, I counted up, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do.
I dump it
Most-
all, my visa into a spreadsheet and then,
Most people,
You're gonna count?
yeah,
okay.
yeah, but most people don't know those things. If you were to sit
That was
down,
it.
Yep.
Well, I think it's five,
No,
maybe it's
it's definitely-
2,500.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on.
5,000 is a lot.
Yeah,
You'd be
that's
going
like,
like,
we
Hold on.
have like wigs and stuff.
No.
but if you sit back and think about, and this is
Yeah,
the
maybe
challenge, right?
I don't remember the
People
number, hold
typically
on.
think on a monthly basis, because that's the revolution of our billing cycle. You know, you get a Visa bill once a month, you pay Rogers once a month. If you then get into the real cost of it, if you took that Visa and then broke it out and said, so really, it's like 75 things on there. So what are those 75? And if I were to do a budget with someone just off the cuff, I'll bet you 40 of those don't even make it into the budget.
You're
Because
right.
you don't think about
You're
things
right.
like,
That's a good thing, is to
how,
take
you
your
know, how much do I
Groceries
spend?
even, wine, groceries.
Groceries are hysterical, because
Wine.
eating,
Wine is
when you
crazy.
say, when you look
LCBO.
at your monthly
Yeah.
budget for, and if you start, and this is what people do, I start with
Oh,
food.
now I'm depressed.
Yeah,
And food, people go to,
Oh.
well, there's two big categories, right? I've got groceries and I've got
Groceries.
restaurants.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you sit down with someone and say, I want you to journal your day.
What
And you're
about
gonna do this for
Starbucks?
2 weeks.
Well,
And-
coffee's alone, you guys.
And the agents that come back and they go, oh my God. So the number of times I kind of went, hey, Cinnabon. And like these are the incidental things. You go, okay, well, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Yeah, no, you don't eat like that.
No.
No, there's Sun Chips and there's a
Oh,
Starbucks
taco stand.
and there's a whatever and there's a food truck that we didn't, and by the time you add it all up, you go, wow, that's really neat. Seeing how many different places my money goes. And you know, consequently, when we sit down with somebody who is outliving their income, and we're able to say, okay, so there's gaps, there's like little holes in the dam. So we're gonna go through a process, we're gonna find out where they are, and again, there's no judgment. Find the holes in your dam and now start plugging them. And start putting yourself on a budget where you say, I know that I've been spending, $20,000 a year on wine. Could I drop that to 10? Yeah.
and you can also set up an alerts on your credit card.
Yeah.
So if your budget for the month is X
Yes.
and you're at week 2, so then you set your alarm to be lower than that.
Yeah.
X minus whatever, and then you get the
Wow.
warning mid-month or week
And you know where
3.
you're at, I get that on mine,
Yeah,
Yeah,
On your
and there's,
what?
on my credit card, so
Yeah,
it will
you can set
then
it up.
inform you, you set an amount, so you've got your limit,
They
and then you
send you-
set an amount of what you, when you have reached that point, and it will alert you.
What if you have like a
You give them credit
special
card.
thing that month of
What?
Sorry, for what, nails as an example?
Anything.
no, just a, yeah.
Just an alert for
It's
anything,
an alert.
so once you get to a certain
it
dollar
tells
amount,
you,
it tells you.
it doesn't lock your card.
It doesn't lock your card, unfortunately.
Well, you can do that too. You can lock your card.
Now you can.
Yeah,
Yeah, because when you
Where
get
do
the
you do
alert,
that? I
RBC.
haven't heard
well,
of
then
that.
I'm
Oh, just
CIBC, you
RBC.
can then go
I'm
lock
with
your card.
RBC, I don't know.
that's so funny.
You can put,
That's just
Yeah,
new,
so-
I know.
Yeah.
So knowing your numbers is super important. The other thing you want to do is know your income, right? I mean, that's the biggest number.
Yeah.
So all sources of your income. In some cases, you may only have one, it may be your real estate business. In others, you may already have an income property, you may have a pension from some other world. You may be starting to get Canada pension. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different things happening. But know what all of it is, so that you can then go in and create a detailed budget. So the best way to know your numbers, honestly, is journal them. Get a little booklet and carry it for 2 weeks. And every single thing you buy, just quick note. And again, do it with no judgment. And don't lie about it later, because then it impacts everything else. So if you're picking up a magazine, newspaper, or you picked up coffee for a friend, or you
Start
did whatever,
after Christmas.
every single thing.
Right.
Uh,
But the good idea was
Or-
the credit card. Like I use my credit card for everything.
So do I.
Yeah, so do I.
So that's a very good point. What's personal, what's biz, and. all the
Yeah, and get
categories.
into that habit. And then,
Do you
and
have
then
2 cards?
you really want to create that budget.
yeah, only one.
Well, they get all the points.
But a wealth building budget has some things in it that other budgets don't. So if you're creating a wealth building budget, you have to have savings, and you have to have investment money. So how you get there, we'll talk about it in the tools, but your budget has to be a budget that has you actually hitting your plan. So if I'm going to be investing in me, how do I do that? If I'm going to be looking at not just managing the money, but creating money that works for itself, that's got to be inside that budget, and you have to hold yourself accountable to it. Has anybody watched any of the Gail Van Oxley series? She does Princess, she did, what was the other budgeting thing? Well, essentially, she's a financial planner, and people would write to her and say, my life is totally upside down, and she would come in and she would do an audit with them for 2 weeks, and then sit them down and say,
Susie Orman.
okay, darling,
Oh, yes, I did
this is the
see
problem.
that.
If anybody
see
knows
that.
Mia was one of the producers on that show.
Oh, is she?
So Mia had worked with her
way.
for years and years, which is very funny. She's got some great stories to tell, but the stuff that I like about Gail is that she really created this simplified way of doing a budget, where, again, you have to know your numbers first, and then she did budget jars. And she said, you're getting yourself off of the world of borrowing. So you have to manage with a cash budget. And she had these 6 or 7 different mason jars. And she said, so here's groceries, and here's going out, and here's the mortgage, and here's the savings, and here's some money for investing, and here's emergencies.
Can do that with
And
managers.
everybody forgets the emergency part. I don't know if you guys still do this stuff, but theoretically, what should you have in the bank as an emergency fund?
Minimum of 3 months.
Yeah, minimum of 3 months, all operating expenses for your household. So that's everything, that's tuition, that's whatever checks you are signing in a month, you should have a minimum of 3. And that never ever gets touched. It's not part of any other plan. But having a budget that has you focus specifically on your plan is super necessary. That plan is going to evolve. In a wealth building world, everybody's starting at a different, sort of rung on the ladder. If we were talking to, I'm thinking of one agent in specific, who I've been working with now for years, her budget now is, how do I decrease my debt to Revenue Canada from $100,000 to $60,000. And it just, like, we've got years of just getting out of debt before we're gonna be able to think about doing wealth building. The cool thing is though, when you get into that kind of skill and that habit, the muscle memory is always there. And once that debt is retired, now you've lived this lifestyle that's a little bit austere for a few years, but now I can take all that money and turn it into investment money, and they're never gonna notice it, because they're so used to living like this and being more disciplined. So, you're gonna have to figure out if your first plan is reduce my debt, if my first plan is get my first investments going, because I've never invested, or if the plan is now I want to get into some more hardcore investing. So I want to go from having some RRSPs and some mutual funds to now I want to start looking at buying properties and really getting into a place where we scale that out. Yeah, super important. And then step 3 is managing the cash flow. And there's some really cool tools to do that. So you can do it yourself with Mason Jars. There's, I don't know, about 1 million apps that help you do this, that have you, again, put in what your budget is, and then as you're spending money, you're kind of clicking, and it starts to tell you where you're at in terms of what your goals are for that month.
Any recommendations on what apps?
No,
You wanna use
Everybody's-
anything?
everybody's got sort of their own favorites. And again, yours may be more complex than somebody else's, they may be way simpler. But however you do it, it's your job now to manage your money. You have to make your money accountable. And if you're following your budget and your budget has money that's going towards creating wealth in whatever way you're doing it, then you have all kinds of different opportunities that come up. And you need to do, again, to go back to the red book, red light, green light, right? Hold your money accountable. So somebody comes and says, listen, here's an opportunity, or you see an opportunity to make some money, but you're gonna have to invest, which means changing your budget a little bit for that month. Then you've got to run it through a filter. And the filter should be, am I making at least 4 times what I'm spending? And if I'm not, then this probably isn't a very good idea. And if it's super risky, unless you are a fairly complex investor, I would stay totally away from it. A big piece of this is reducing debt. So sometimes going through the process, you may have gotten used to your credit card payments being what they are. You may have gotten used to the loan, whether it's still kind of a Ontario student loan or whatever it is you're paying off. You don't have to get used to it. There's better ways of dealing with it. So you want to reduce debt. You certainly want to get away from anything where there's big interest charges. So sometimes people are surprised to find out that you could borrow $5,000 from a bank at a better rate than what somebody else has been charging you for a quick $5,000 payday loan, or whatever it is that you got into that's now got you into a cycle where really you're probably paying, between the interest and the service charges, you're 25 to 30% a month. Now, if you can borrow money from a family member and give them 5%, you're way better off just going that way and saying, let's start working on reducing the debt, but then taking the money you were putting into servicing that debt and now just move it. And now you're going to move it towards money that's going to be in an investment pool for whatever you want to do. And then the biggest thing, and this is, it shouldn't be rocket science, but it seems to be, you have to invest in you. And to me, that's been something I've never really understood. I was a weird kid, and from sort of delivering the Toronto Star to McDonald's to every job I ever worked, every single paycheck, a chunk of it went away. That was investing in me. That money went. Didn't go for a car, didn't go for whatever, like that was just there. Now this is the rest, really, that's my 100%. Because the other stuff was already gone. And that was money that I would then have sitting around to be able to take advantage of other opportunities. So invest in you. In debt consolidators, they talk about paying you first. Right, so you pay yourself 25%, and then the rest is what you've got to budget with. Mo Anderson in her stuff talks about the sort of the 4 different categories. What we do is relatively the same. So when we're talking about the key tools you use, taking advantage of online banking. So if you're in something like a Tangerine, you can have any number of sub-accounts and they don't charge you for them. A lot of traditional banks do, or they limit the number of them that you can have. So this becomes this really easy way of having the silos where you have the sort of the money you know you need. And if we're going to expand this into our real estate world, so you've got your tax account, you've got your HST, you've got operating, then you've got your savings, which is really your sort of your personal home financing stuff, and investments. And if you just get into the habit, every time you grab a check from Natasha, you go, you deposit it into whatever bank you're in, you transfer the whole amount up to your Tangerine account, and then you hit, you already know what the HST is, your operating expenses are probably about 20% of that check. Your income taxes are going to be somewhere around 30% of the balance of that. Now I know what my operating costs are in my household because I've gone through tracking everything and now I've come up with a budget, and I know what my investments need to be because I've already gone through a plan and I've monetized it and I've put it to a calendar where I've said, here's exactly what I need and when I need, and now I know how much per month I need to save. And if I know relatively smoothly that things from a closings point of view happen once a month or once every 2 months, I can now start figuring out how to do that. Eventually, all of these, this one, so your tax account, you're going to empty every year. Your HST, you're going to empty every year. The likelihood is that both of these are going to have funds left in them because you've been super diligent at following Lou's advice and you've got your tax stuff, organized. You're often going to be saving more than you're actually going to have to pay. You take all of that excess and it goes into here. Your operating, I would let run at an overdraft or an overage every year rather than zeroing it out, because it's always better to have more money in your operating than not enough. And savings, you've already planned for. This ends up becoming where you bonus yourself, right? So you're investing in you. Does that make sense?
They're online messengers.
Hmm?
They're online messengers.
Yeah, for sure. Credit cards. In our world, they're a huge tool. And we did talk about this in the new seminar. Get one for your business. Keep your personal stuff so far away from it you never have to worry about it. Your business is your business is your business. All of those go into their own accordion file. When it comes time for anybody to audit anything, you go, here it is. It's all there. I keep it separate. They're never going to look at the other stuff when you're able to say, as a business person, I have a business credit card. So it's there. It also, from again, a creating wealth point of view, we pick our credit cards specifically. So for us, we're all Avion. Everything that we've got ties back to Avion because We take all of the travel points, and that's what we vacation on. Our business points from the business card, that's how we fly to family reunion every year. So if you've got something that's gonna kind of pay you, then use it. The other habit we got into that has really helped us with managing money and creating investment money is to carry a zero balance. And it's sometimes tough to do that, but the benefits are huge. In essence, what ends up happening is that your credit card that costs you $150 a year then costs you nothing else. And if you're using it religiously, we're now at a point where we're paying for probably $6,000 to $7,000 in flights a year. So RBC is in the hole for about $6,000 a year to us. And the way they demonstrate their love of us is to constantly call and up our limits.
Yeah.
And we constantly thank them for the opportunity, and we decline politely. But we've also set things to a high enough limit with the business card, because I'm never going to really go into business card stuff for my investing. But my business card has enough of a sort of a potential balance to it that, again, in the event of a business catastrophe, we can float business stuff for long enough to get through that catastrophe. It's the last thing you want to do, but it's worth having.
Question on that.
Yeah.
I mean, so from a tax standpoint, it's still a mix, right? I mean, it's because it's a solopreneur proprietor, it's under personal. When you do the business and they split it.
Are you talking about one card for both, or?
Well, I'm just trying to, like, when you do taxes, right,
Yeah.
it's personal taxes as a real estate agent,
Yes.
right? So your personal, and then your business, which is still personal because it's a sole proprietor. And it can't be incorporated.
Correct.
Whereas I have a company, right, my staging company is a business corporate,
Right.
right? So we do it that way.
Yes.
So my question is, like, I hear you saying keep a personal credit card and a business credit card
Yes.
and the accordion, which I have, but
I understand what you're saying.
yeah, okay. So
Yeah,
where does
keep-
my
keep-
gas receipt go in your eyes?
So you keep a separate card that you've defined it as my business account. And that's when you're setting up your online banking, you can say my business account, or my business Visa. And you just run everything through there. Now, when it comes to things like your gas receipts at the end of the year, because we know that realtors typically are sort of 70 to 80% business,
Yeah,
then we run everything business, and then we take 20% out of that and say, from a Revenue Canada point of view, that was personal.
yes.
Rather than looking through our business stuff and saying, this amount of that was business, and trying to move it over.
So I think as a sole proprietor, without having a separate business, we can use one credit card and we just separate our receipts.
No, you can, it will drive you crazy. Get two cards. Two
I
cards,
think
and
that's
say
what I'm
one's-
still, like,
one's
I'm
business
hearing
and
you,
one's
like, I know
personal.
from a, like, again, with having the staging, it's totally separate, it's easy
Yeah.
to move, right? But with it being the same, the accordion file folder for the audit purpose is still going to be all of the receipts.
Listen to the account.
Yes, Deborah.
Don't forget about the fact that you're filing your tax return personally.
Mhm.
So for example, your salon visit, your haircut is a personal expense. That
Right.
doesn't even come into your tax picture at all when you file your taxes. So when
Right.
you're managing your life and your expenses, that's a personal expense, whereas a business expense is the gas. And that's also gonna go in your tax return. It doesn't matter that it's called personal. Because you're just filing your tax return for your income, which is always your
Got it.
Your
business
business,
income,
that's right.
against your business expenses.
Yes.
Say that last thing again?
When you're filing your tax return,
Mhm.
it's your personal business expenses with whatever is allowable as a deduction
Yeah.
for business purposes.
I got it now, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next one, it's super easy to use, that people are not using enough of, and you really should, your TFSA, tax-free savings account. You have, there's a limit, there's a maximum you can put in it every year in terms of what you can put into it. However, all of its growth is tax-free. And the cool thing is, hopefully you don't put cash in it. What you're doing is putting non-registered investments into it. So if you were going to take this year's, or $6,500 for 2018, so you could, if you got $6,500 in your bank account, you could put in a TFSA, you go and you buy $6,500 worth of stock that you think is gonna be fantastic, or anything else, and
Thank
you
God
dump
we
it
did
in
this
there,
year.
and next year, when that dividend paying stock has gone up to $7,500, plus there's been dividends paid in, that $1,000 is tax-free. There is never a capital gain on it. So everything you can put in there, I would certainly take advantage of that. What most people use, and this is still, still popular, and it's got some good tax advantages for most people. Your RRSP.
I was just gonna emphasize that your TFSA, you should max that out first
Yes.
before you start with your RSP.
I agree.
I didn't know that you
But
could
what
put
about if-
stocks into that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You should do.
Yeah.
That's what it
I
should
have a
be, not
mutual
just
Yeah.
cash.
cash before
Because
cash it out.
Doesn't
Cash doesn't
earn
mean anything.
anything.
Yeah.
There's
Don't
no
put cash
point,
in.
just put cash in your
Buy
savings.
stuff with the
then.
cash, put that in.
And get a
But
TFSA.
So you get a double hit.
Yeah.
Right. Because you
Right.
save the tax like on your earnings by putting it in the TFSA.
Right.
And then whatever you earn,
In the
whatever that
TFSA,
is.
I'm not getting taxed on it until I
Right,
take
so
it
you
out.
wanna maximize
on my
your
dividends.
benefit on that.
Yeah, and it never, so.
Can I take existing stock and put it into that?
Till you die.
I believe you can,
Check with your.
but again, talk to your coach.
What do you have?
They're gonna do the cap, this is not meant to be.
I've been putting cash in.
Ontario Securities Commission's training.
Yeah.
You can ask Lou. I am the tax loser in my family, so he knows way more than me.
I didn't
Please
know
check with
about
your
it. I've been
financial
putting
person.
cash.
Yeah.
I am my financial person.
Yeah, so take all the cash, take
You
all the
can ask the
cash.
bank.
Okay, like
Yeah.
I honestly, just the bank manager sort of said, but what if you have limited funds, so you're, like, why would you put, my point was, say I have 10,000 extra and I put it in savings, but I don't have a TFSA.
Only
Shouldn't I
TFSA.
take the 10,000 out of savings and put it, like, what's first?
TFSA.
Yeah,
TFSA.
So
That-
don't have a savings then?
Yeah, so again, that's
that's still savings.
savings and investment are two different things.
Right, but say
So
you're
savings,
after operations and you have $10,000.
okay, so now I'm in my savings account, and this is what I'm paying for my family expenses out of, right? So I use my mortgage and my food and going out for parties and
So I
all
would
that
call
other
that
stuff,
savings.
and I want there to be extra.
Oh, I think that's in.
So if, well, no, operations is your real estate operating expenses.
So I would
Oh, I
separate
thought
that
that was
into
your
a business
business,
and
not
have a
your
family.
life.
You could,
That's what I use
you
it
could,
for.
but
So
then
put
add
business
a
operations
sixth
in.
one that's real estate operations.
Right.
Yeah, no, you can totally do it, totally do it. Yeah, but whatever, so now you've got savings, you want to get to your 3-month emergency fund in your savings, and now the money starts going into the investment account on top of whatever else you've already budgeted to go into your investment account every month. And the first thing you want to do with it is make it work. So if you're buying something and putting it into a TFSA, it's working for you. If you leave it at RBC making 0.1% interest, it's nothing. Even if you're going
Oh,
to
so
move
the
it,
TFSA could be in the investment, like that's
Can
what
I-
it is.
the money, yes, what you do with the investment account money is totally up to you. You could do all of these things, so reduce your credit card debt, get it into a TFSA, start to get into RSP, room contribution, yes.
Can I say, like, there's two arms to this? So like the overall thing is you're investing, but then there's your tax strategy for your
Yes.
investing. So that's what you're talking about when you're talking about the TFSA and RSP, because that just gives you more advantage because you're saving tax dollars, so you're saving even more money to invest.
Right.
So whatever you, yeah.
But wouldn't you like, if you have $10,000, wouldn't it be better to put it in your RSP because it reduces your
No.
thing than to put it in the
It's taxable.
TFSA?
Tax-free, that's why they brought it in, right? You're
No,
not
it's
getting
tax-free on what
Yeah.
you earn.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
taxed, like it's,
It's not
And when you
taxable.
put in there, when you earn,
Taking
you have
it
to
out.
pay,
When
once
you
you
take
take it
ours-
out.
yeah.
Let's defer to the,
Okay, what's the question?
So if you have $10,000,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be better to put it against the RSP?
then a TFSA?
No.
Was the question.
Because at the end of the day, down the road, when you take out money from your RSP when you're older,
Right.
it's taxable.
Big
Your
time.
tax-free savings account is
Roofs
always
are
tax-free.
Roofs are 50%
It's sheltered
taxable.
forever.
But that
But you're
10,000
buying, but you're buying
reduces-
with tax,
If you
tax,
put in
Your
10,000,
taxes for the year.
Taxed dollars.
yeah,
Taxed.
yeah, yeah,
Already.
yeah.
Right.
You already paid the tax on it.
So that's,
Well, same with,
Do you know what
that's
I
what
mean?
I
there's
thought
more
with the money in the
advantages to the
TFSA.
TFSA
Yeah.
from a tax perspective, because that's all we're talking about when we're talking about TFSAs and
Yes.
RSPs.
Right.
There's more advantage to you to start off putting money first, whatever access you have of your
After-tax
investment
dollars.
money
After tax dollars.
in TFSAs.
When
Okay, I
you,
thought it was to bring down your income.
no, RSPs are good for that, but
Yes.
the amount of $1 that you get back for a $1 contribution to an RSP from a tax perspective isn't the same as what happens down the road when you go to need to get those funds back. So the growth in the TFSA has been equal to or greater than whatever was in your RSP. I mean,
Right.
they're all the same things. They're all stocks, they're mutual funds, they're whatever. But when you go to take $10,000 out of your TFSA to invest it in something, you get $10,000. When you take out the money from the RSP, you have a little bit of a tax advantage when you put it in. But
Right.
now
You
you're
are
getting
paying
taxed
something.
at
I see.
whatever that tax rate was at the time.
Yeah, I see.
So you could be losing 45% of it,
So, yeah, so all the interest is taxable on the
Yeah,
RSP.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
right?
thank you.
We
So,
have the best explanation.
then we get into
You could too.
the non-registered accounts. And those are the kinds of accounts that your investment advisor would set up, or you set up, you do your own trading, you do whatever. Because it's not inside an RSP, there is no tax advantage on that side of things. So really, you're now getting into stocks and mutual funds and things that have different levels of risk and different levels of return. You have some things that are going to pay dividends and some that won't. And you get to ride the market. It goes up and down and up and down. If you wanted to try to do it on your own, you could spend all day, every day trying to time things. Has anybody ever seen anybody be able to time something brilliantly in the stock market? So it's
Just the
You
inside.
get lucky.
Yeah.
Well, you get lucky.
Yeah, Deborah.
I went to a seminar recently, and this is really interesting. So when you're looking at your mix of everything, when you're talking about stocks and bonds and stuff, those are all things that ride up and down with the economy and everything else, and so you're open to more risk there. But when you're talking about land and real estate, in the medium to long term, there's less volatility, but it's also less liquid.
Yes.
So, but this is again, you go talk to your investment advisor, because I'm just telling, this is very high level. You need the appropriate mix of that, because if you've got enough, you get to the point where you've got enough excess, you want to have some of it that you don't need in the next 5 to 10 years, well, let's say 5 years, in these very illiquid assets that aren't affected by the economy.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
and
makes
we'll talk about sort of mix when we get through all of the tools. So your non-registered accounts, again, there are people who are convinced that they can do something better than the professionals. Have any of you heard a client say that?
Yep.
I can sell my house, why do I need to pay
Our
for?
rent, our rent.
Yeah,
They make more money
it's
than stock
crazy.
market.
It's crazy.
I've done this several times.
I've done it
I'm
several
good, yeah.
times. So imagine that now in the volatile world of global stocks. And you're talking multiple exchanges, you're talking about a learning curve that's absolutely ridiculous. But there's nothing stopping you from doing it. I think it's an important part of everybody's portfolio. I think you need to have a really good mix of all four of these things to get to that wealth building plan that you want to get to. I'm going to tell you about the most expensive muffin in the world. I have a very, very good friend, David, who is a competition bureau lawyer. He does work internationally. He's also, because he's always the smartest guy in the room, he does a lot of day trading, or did a lot of day trading. And then he had the most expensive muffin ever. He was out of the office getting a muffin, so he was at Blake Castle's, and he went down to the food court, and he played around, and he found his muffin, and he came back upstairs, and Blackberry had gone. It had just gone. It was like 3 hours where it dropped like 80%. He didn't, because he's a smart investor. But he figures he lost $6,800 in a half hour. So he still says, let me tell you about the most expensive muffin I've ever bought. And it's when he then said, you know what, I'm still gonna keep some money to play with in my own trading, but I'm gonna go back to now going to an institutional place where, again, if you're in with a wealth management group at any of the big banks or the investment firms, there's especially in the worlds we're in now, there's all kinds of other ancillary services that come with that. So you now have access to their lawyer to talk about estate planning and family trusts and everything else. You have their accounting group who can talk about some of your bigger plans. There's any number of different things that come with that kind of full service thing. So are you paying a little bit more every year in your fees? Absolutely, but at a point where now life is more complex and there's children and heirs and grandchildren, whatever to think about, that's also a really good time to be talking to people who really understand all of the stuff you're doing and can come up with a really concrete plan around succession and leaving legacies and all that other kind of stuff. The final one, real estate. Hands up the people that own at least one income generating property. Okay, 4 out of 6. 2, 3 or more. So anybody been in the room for 3 or less years in real estate? Yeah, by 1 a year. That's your wealth building strategy. See, here's where we get to that.
Everyone says this.
Take your money you make
Wait.
and use the money to
Yeah,
buy something else.
so I have clearly, and again, I'm gonna go back to this. So if I look at our
I
portfolio,
really don't get it.
so we have a solid portfolio of TFSA, RSP, and non-registered. And that is our diversification on one level.
You can do it, yeah.
And again, we are in a mix of things. Irene and I sort of fall into the medium risk category because of our ages. My mom's stuff is dealt through the same wealth management guide. Low risk, because once you hit 65, you want virtually no risk. But we're still in medium. And then our real estate portfolio, again, we approach with the same attitude. It has to be diversified, cannot all be in one city, can't be one kind of asset mix, because the world changes. And if one goes sideways, I want to make sure the other ones are protected. They're all bought with a very similar approach to things. So what is the predominant industry in the area? What is the investment that universities and colleges are making in that area? What is the healthcare industry doing to invest in that area? And then what's the asset mix of renters? So I do not want students as the only ones. I don't want to be in a one industry town. I don't want to be in an area where the big government-run and industry-run players are not investing and seeing a 20 or 30-year return. So you take all those things, and it points to a number of communities and cities and countries and whatever else. You go, okay, so now we've got our budget. Well, what's our buying budget? What are the rents? How do we handle all that? There are some incredibly profoundly intricate ways of doing that stuff. I've taken the super simple way, which is, does my rent pay for everything plus? And if it does, I'm in. That's it, that's as complex. You know, we have agents in our own world, our group of friends, they want to talk about cap rates and ratios, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. If someone else is paying the bills, then I will let someone else pay the bills.
Nothing, that's what because Donna was like saying, how?
Yeah.
Okay,
So this is funny because I didn't know who was going to be here today. So if I pull a case study, I typically go with the people that usually come to this, and it's the admin staff. And the admin staff will say, I make $45,000 to $50,000 a year. I will never, ever, ever, ever be able
Right.
to invest in Toronto. And that is horse pox.
Or what if people are like, they're still trying to fill up their TFSA
Yeah.
mason jar, or there are,
Sure.
like, I don't know.
You take steps, right?
Okay.
So again,
Like, if you have a ton of money, I
get
can't.
your numbers, get your budget done, get your plan in place, and take step one. And if step one is, I need to retire $3,000 in Visa card debt, that's step one. We'll
Right.
do that, and if that takes 6 months, as long as you follow the plan and say, so every month, I have to add this much to that pot,
Right.
and we'll do that, and then we'll go on. Right now, in Toronto, would you be surprised to find out that just by running through the MLS right now, there are, ooh, that was close.
Whoa.
That
That would be an operational expense.
Permanent.
12 condo apartments available right now, 12 condo units, for, you know, investment purposes, under $120,000.
Yeah, and like,
Yes.
bum.
340 Dixon.
Did I say
Can't get
anyone
one.
here?
doesn't matter if you would
Did I
live in it or
say
not.
you had to live in it?
Can't get a mortgage.
You're right, we've got to stop thinking of
And
Midtown.
is it a
Oh.
location that
Well,
you,
yeah, you have
That's
to
a
think of
Yeah,
different.
so let's
We
go
have high
through, let's go
expectations.
through the numbers.
Okay.
So right now, there is,
there's a one thing from a risk, it's not the wealth risk, it's the, like, just what's happening now, like with the,
Yeah.
what we talked about with the renter, that decides
Yeah.
to pay, and
Yeah.
then you're dealing with
Yeah,
that.
so $90,000 is the cheapest one bedroom right now, $120,000 is the cheapest two bedroom. Down payments, what's the minimum?
Realistic, like 3
For
or
investment
What's-
purposes?
What's the minimum?
Five.
For-
We're talking about whether people could actually do this or not. 5%, so what's 5% of $90,000?
45.
4,500.
Do you think, Donna, going to your question, do you think it's plausible
Yes, I'm
that
gonna
someone
say
could
yes
come
for all
up
of
with that?
this, of course.
Right, so that's 6,000.
Yeah.
So we're now talking about things that are within the realm of possibility for everybody that works in this office, no matter what your role is. So you get into the monthly payments. So for a 5% fixed rate mortgage on a 85.5 mortgage,
But how are you gonna get a mortgage?
Oh, it's easy.
You have to put 30% down on an investment property, I thought, not 5.
no, we can work around all of those things. Commercial properties, sure. Your first, you're
So
still
if I
in the
live or someone
realm.
lives in a,
If you're buying something, so you don't already
their
own,
main property,
and you're buying something,
right,
and you put somebody in as a renter,
right,
that's very different than you buying something as an investment. Because Revenue Canada gives you now the right, once a year, you have to report your sale, but you get to determine what your principal property is.
right, so I'm saying if you have your principal property, this is your secondary property, I thought you had to have 30% down.
If
you have
you're
secondary property.
renting and you buy a property,
Yeah.
it is possible to find lenders that will give you the 5%. Okay? So let's go through the numbers. So the mortgage here is 570, mortgage here is 679. Maintenance fees were about 680 here, they were 720 here. Property taxes are a ridiculous $20 a month in both, they're in the same
Yeah,
building.
it's like, it is.
Where'd you see that building for 90K? In the GTA?
It's Jane and Black Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about building wealth, we're not talking about
Yeah, you're giving me, yes,
hosting
right.
barbecues, right? So
Is
we're,
that like 40?
You want to be a
Yeah,
vacant
but again,
landlord. Sorry.
Or
the people that you're gonna be able to get to
sell
go in
better
there,
with
that's
a
the risk, is it
better
not?
quality
Right, like you also
property.
want something that you think, you know, isn't gonna be burnt down or shot down, so.
Yeah,
Well,
or
but
that
you
they
could
can
also
pay the
then-
actual rent.
You know, get 3 of your girlfriends together that all have the $4,500
Right.
and,
Yeah,
better.
and do it that way.
so,
You don't have
so
to do
the
it all
rents,
yourself.
and these are, again, so these are reported rents on MLS. So the rent for a 1-bedroom in this building is 17, for a 2-bedroom it runs about 1,800. So you're
People pay
already,
that?
And
they're, clearly they are, yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Well, listen, if you were in a different building, so the rents, we just put one up and we can't keep up with the showings. 2 bedrooms at Park Lawn and Lakeshore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's an okay
Admittedly
area.
nice,
It's an okay area.
but $2,700.
Yeah, that's an okay area.
Right, but these are totally reasonable
You're just giving
given the
ideas.
change in lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're already, before you get into things like whatever the insurance is you're gonna have to carry, which again, isn't going to be anywhere near here, but you're looking at being cash flow positive of $400 a month.
Wow.
Now, if you were stretched to get into something that was wealth building, this is a totally doable scenario. And it wouldn't be that long before you could then start to take some equity out of that. So if you were looking at doing really simple management of you know, a property, as you were doing your other saving strategies, if you've got an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month, then you take advantage of your mortgage's product features that allow you to put down lump sums once a year. So you start to reduce the mortgage fairly quickly. So this is the kind of investment that, again, you don't ever have to go there. You don't have to do anything. You could sit on it and do nothing ever, ever, ever. And at some point, when the mortgage has been paid off, this is now $1,000 a month. So your investment was $4,500. It's now paying you $1,000 a month in perpetuity, as long as that building stands. As much as you know, we can be judgy about where other people live, none of those buildings have ever fallen. They've been there since the 1960s. I mean, they will continue to be there for a
And they
long,
probably
long
will
time.
always be rentals, right? Because.
Sure,
Yes.
sure. But if you were
There's
Some
always
of them
gonna be
have
people that
changed into,
need
Still live there.
condos.
yeah, Driftwood, right? That's
Yeah,
big
now,
area with
now
it.
again, if that's creating a cash flow of $1,000 a month,
Yeah.
could you then take that and now start to turn that into a different investment? Because you've now got $12,000 a year that's coming in, there's tax to pay on it and whatever else, but it now funds other things. So you can start at something this low and get into the market and build your credit history and. And if you were talking about somebody who's making a marginal amount of money per year, this is a totally doable scenario. If you wanted to get into something where you were looking at both the cash flow and the growth in equity, now you're looking into different neighborhoods. You certainly don't have to be in Midtown, because I would argue that's probably, that's got its own risks. But if you were looking at emerging neighborhoods like Rockcliffe Smythe, like, you know, sort of the Eglinton and Scarlet area, where you could get into a house for $400 or $450 and have more of a down payment on it and get better rent out of them. Again, all of those things are possible.
Yeah, because you have condo fees too.
But again, like,
Not that in there, right?
we paid the condo fees.
Oh,
So there aren't a lot of investments that I can get into today with $4,500 down that are starting to pay me $400 a month. In a lot of cases, that sounds like a Ponzi,
Yeah.
right? That's 10% of my original investment back every month.
Yeah.
Well,
Are there known buildings that are better investments for this kind of
11
thing?
months,
Like-
within a year, you've got your
Do
deposit
agents
already
know?
paid back to you.
Exactly.
There are, for sure. And again, it's not even, you know, you think about how close we are to so many other locales.
Right.
So 2 years ago, I was looking at condos in London because my cousin was doing his residency in medical school there. So for $299, you can buy a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo
Right.
and put a 5th or 6th year med student in there.
Yeah, they always-
And the rents are just slightly less than Toronto, but the buy-in is way less.
And I guess you wanna make sure that the building was going up in value, at least
Well,
somewhat.
That's the
It doesn't
bonus.
even- you know
That's
what?
the
It
bonus.
doesn't really
But
matter.
it doesn't
Well,
matter,
in this
as long
case-
as it's going up and not going down, because
Yeah.
you're still paying it off, you're still getting your money
In
back.
this case,
Even if-
relative to the value of the condo in that example,
Yeah.
maintenance fees are high.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an older
Yeah,
building.
good point, yeah.
What's probably gonna, I'm not saying this is right, but I'm asking, I guess. The value of the condo as the maintenance fees rise could go down, but that's not what this is for. This is for your excess
Yes,
cash
it's
flow.
for the- that's
It's for
right.
the cash flow.
Yeah.
You're still ahead.
On your own piece of
Because
property.
I
you
guess
own
you're-
it.
you-
You've got
the
excess
mortgage
cash and
broker
you're paying your
too.
mortgage.
Well, at some point it'll be paid, right?
So the piece that I'm lost on is
Right.
what you asked
There,
before.
yeah.
So you own the property
Right.
and it's your house and now you're going into investing. Does that model that you just, does that change somehow? That is something.
Yeah,
Maybe
for
that's
sure.
Jason.
For sure, the access to capital changes
Changes,
the
yes.
more, and it's not just you having one principal property. I mean, now, every time you buy another one,
Right.
everything, you know, starts to shift around, which is why in that scenario, and it's why we put such a hardcore push on getting our principal residence paid off. So, and there's lots of arguments, you know, both for and against that. It's the least tax efficient way to use your money.
To pay off your own home?
Yeah, because again, you're using money, I don't get a tax break for it,
Right.
right? But if I'm using my money to buy other things and I can write off those mortgages, I'm not saving anything with paying off my own mortgage. What I am doing is creating an equity pool.
That's what people say, yeah.
So now, we've got 6 income properties, we've got 2 more that are being built. And when those 2 at Avenue and St. Clair get registered, we know that the banks are already going to be coming to us again and saying, listen, your loan to debt ratio on these, like your income hasn't really changed. And now you want to carry 2 more mortgages. And we're able to turn around and say, why don't you do a valuation of my principal residence? I've got $2.2 million in an asset sitting there. So we're okay
Right,
for the $400,000 in that
right,
mortgage. over
because
there.
you're using it for something.
Yeah, so you're leveraging one thing to get access to money for something else. The properties in Las Vegas, we paid cash because it was better than what we were going to get in terms of mortgage rates as Canadians buying in the States. But when we say we bought cash, it was a house. And we got a line of credit against the house, we went and bought those 2 things.
Right.
And then said, okay, so now
Kind of like a
the
mini.
cash flow that's coming out of that is
Providing
coming
yourself
out.
with
Big
more.
mortgage.
And it's coming out in
providing
American
yourself.
dollars, and we're doing the flip, and then we're putting that straight to the payments for the line of credit. So we're just, again, we're letting somebody else pay those bills. Anytime you can get somebody else's money to pay your bills, it's a really, really good thing.
Yeah, I do get that.
So here's what we were talking about. I mean, you can invest for cash flow, you can invest for growth, or you can invest for both. And I don't care, honestly. Again,
be both, yeah.
that's you and your accountant and your lawyer and your financial advisor to figure out what you want to do. But do something. Right now, we're sitting as a collective group that could save 2.5% on a purchase and 2.5% on selling it, and we don't do it.
Right.
That's crazy. So even if you're not doing it in a big thing with a house that you would love to drive people by and say, look at what I bought as an investment, buy something and have it be little and have, people there and paying your bills, because at the end of the day, all you did was put the down payment.
You still have to get the mortgage.
Sure, everybody here will qualify for a mortgage
Yeah.
on a second
And
property.
step 1, if you're curious about this and you're thinking, oh, I can't do it, go talk to your trusted mortgage advisor and they'll show you how you can.
Yeah, talk to Jason.
Like if a client said to you, I want to invest in a condo,
Yeah.
or I want to invest like 500 to 600 or whatever, like, do you have properties? Do you guys know properties that you would suggest, or does it really matter? Is it just investing?
Well, again, so what you do is have this discussion with them. Say, so you're talking cash flow? Are you talking growth in equity?
Right.
Because one building might be better at one than the other.
That makes
And
sense.
then if you want to do a mix, what you're doing typically is not getting the best of either of those, but you're putting it in there and you're just sitting and waiting.
And you know, it's
Construction.
interesting, because I keep thinking it's somewhere I want to live, and it doesn't have to
New
be
construction,
somewhere I wanna live.
worst investment you can make.
No.
I never really
From a
thought of it
tax
like that.
One
perspective,
of the
and a cash flow
wealthiest real
perspective.
estate guys I know,
Really?
although it's commercial,
Yeah.
he owns probably all of this, I'm gonna call them slum rental
Right,
apartment
right.
buildings, like the entire building in Toronto.
Wow. But you're right, I guess it wouldn't, where's your investment properties?
Midtown.
Okay, so you've done that. And it pays for it. Are they condos or semis or
Condos,
smart?
pre-construction, I
Oh.
invested.
So
And why do you say it's the worst investment?
it is, if you break it down,
I
now,
thought you
again,
said all
I
is
do it,
pre-construction.
But here's the challenge. If you sat down with a Deborah or a Lou and you did a real spreadsheet of cash and how it works. So what, right now, we're gonna buy a condo to invest in. What's the down payment on new construction?
20%,
5%.
Yeah, 20 to 25, depending on the builder.
20 for the most part.
Wait,
Over
wait,
2
How,
years.
what's the best time to get the best price on the units?
First launch.
First day. What is the time gap between first day and registration of the unit? On
Or,
average.
3
it
years?
depends, 3 years.
Yeah? This is the piece that nobody does the calculations for.
The money's tied
That
up.
25% sat there for 3 years and you got zero. The lost opportunity on that money is huge. Now, take that same 25%, put it down on an existing condo, get a renter in it 30 days later, how much money gets earned over the following 35 months? It's a huge, and again,
And
it's,
it all
it's-
depends on your timing in the market, where you buy, who you buy
And-
from.
and everybody- and
because by the
everybody's-
time you occupy, you've made money.
You hope.
sometimes, but that
It depends where
changes.
you, it does change.
And again, if you flip it, when it gets registered, you get taxed on that,
Yes, you do.
capital gain.
But if you have children, perfect.
Oh, yeah, listen, I'm not saying don't do it, because we do it, and we do it with the right projects.
Yes.
Like, if it's in an area that we know is just going to be, when the Blue Diamond project was announced, we went, oh my God, that is crazy. And the reason why we went so gooey about it is that we knew it was gonna take 3 years, and we knew no matter what we did with that money, by the time those actually get built, you're not gonna be able to buy a 700 square foot house at Avenue in St. Clair for anywhere near what you're gonna be able to buy these things for. So the gap between what residential values are and what condo values are, if you can get the gap to be like this, you're in fantastic space. The challenge is that it's doing this in most neighborhoods. Right now, the 2 new projects that have been announced in High Park, $1,400 a square foot.
Isn't that crazy?
The condos are now more expensive than the houses.
Well, that's why
And
there's
they
a slowdown in
wonder,
the
they
condo
wonder
buy.
why they're only 50% sold, and they wonder why nobody's
That
buying the bigger
new one, the
units.
Winslow. that I
Because they can't afford them. You save up.
$2.2 million for the townhouses. In a neighborhood where 1.8 buys me a beautiful house.
I know, are they sold out?
No, nowhere near, nowhere
Exactly.
near.
So
And they're now,
this is where we've come to right now with the condos over the last
Yeah.
12 to
Yeah.
15 months, and eventually it will change again.
Well,
It's all cyclical.
they're bringing the
What's
price.
our right
They're bringing
now?
the price when the finish is gonna be where,
Larger condos.
yeah, they're selling for now.
so
You're paying in
again,
advance.
when you look at this and sort of the lost opportunity there, and you calculate that, it takes you from new construction is fantastic to light work. Like, depends why I want to buy it.
Yeah.
But it used to be 10 years ago when we were buying new construction, we were guaranteed you could double what it went in at. If you bought it for 3, we sold it for 6 every single time.
Right.
Now, no way, no doubt.
So buy a.
Because the
Yeah,
builders-
that's why
Resale
there's
now,
not
you're
much
saying?
launching
Yeah,
down.
I mean, the builders caught wind very quickly that that's what was happening, and so they started putting their prices up, and good for them. They should.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Jason, I'm gonna sit with you and you tell me what I should buy.
Yeah. And again, I want you to have a mix.
Perk of having Philip Vision.
Have a mix of things. We've got a great, the guy who's managing our
Stupid, I should have done it.
our stock portfolios, he's doing a solid, we get sort of 4.5% to 5% a year, and we're pleased as punch with that. Because that's around what houses went up in the
Yeah,
last year and a half in
amazing.
Toronto. Anything more than that, anytime an investment advisor promises you more than 7 or 8%,
Walk away.
well, don't walk away, but really, like, do your research and, you know, talk to previous clients. Any good wealth manager will give you a list of people to talk to. The ones that don't, and again, there's a difference between a financial advisor and a financial consultant.
Yeah.
Learn the difference, one's a salesperson, one isn't. Yeah, do it all. But what I, you know, want the takeaway here to be is that everybody can be doing this. So go out, journal your spending habits, then try to figure out, can I be changing those? Can I be freeing up more money so that I can be investing in myself? And then come up with just a really clear plan. Here's what I want to do, you know, at the 5-year mark, break it into 5, take it into a now, what do I have to do? There's 12 months, now break it down to even weekly if you want to get that specific. But take the time to at least take your money, put it into those silos, and start building your own wealth, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And if you wait to have a big enough year or a big enough 2 years in real estate to then start thinking about this stuff, you're missing all kinds of opportunities.
Text Jason.
Yeah, just get a little bit of a down payment together and then let somebody else pay the bills. And then start thinking about what are some other opportunities with mutual funds and
I
stocks.
thought you had to pay, I thought it was 30% when you had a second property that you had to have as a, and if I wanted something around 500, that's 150, and I want to get a boat, it's like, well, I'll use the money for that instead of an investment thing, and.
Yeah, and again, but that's red light, green light, right? So the boat, so you have a boat.
Right,
Seems like a beautiful boat.
yeah,
So you could get another boat,
I want to.
but would you want to take that 150,
This is what I'm
do
thinking.
that, and then have that
Make money,
get you an even bigger boat,
that's what I'm thinking.
right? Like if you can make do with what you have for another couple seasons, what does that allow you to do that's going to put something in motion that 20 years from now, you're going to be 60, and now
Yeah,
there's
20
this.
years from now, where I live, there's no, this is immediate.
Oh God, no,
I'm
the way
not-
you live, perfect.
I'm not saying where you live, but
Fill those germs,
so
shit,
here's
those
where,
bad
when you go to the boat. So when we bought our places in both the 2 in Las Vegas and the 2 in Barrie, they were experiencing very similar circumstances. So they both had hospitals expanding, universities expanding. They both experienced a downturn in the market, which gave a pretty good buying opportunity. So we knew there was going to be an upswing in value, but I was less concerned with that than the fact that rents there were really strong. In Vegas, the issue was that everybody that got wiped out in the mortgage crisis now had great jobs, shitty credit. And they needed to rent for 7 years to repair their credit. So you had this pool of professionals who had every vested reason to have you love them and help them repair their credit.
Right, but,
Barrie was going through the same thing. So Barrie, lots of expansion of Go and the hospitals up there and the colleges. Honda was expanding, so they weren't just a one industry town. And when the Go corridor opened up, it now became a much more desirable neighborhood for Torontonians to park some money into. So what we were able to do is sort of look at those scenarios and say, if we could see over a period of time even a 20% increase in value, wow, that's fantastic. But the bigger issue is that Barrie pays Toronto rents. and at probably, a third of the buying. So what we're getting now is the growth that we've seen in the equity that becomes the bonus. We weren't counting on that, we weren't sort of making this decision based on that. It was really that the houses more than carry themselves. So I'm gonna let someone else pay for that. I put down the down payment and then I said.
What do you think of overseas? Like, I have an opportunity in Mexico to get a condo and things like that. Like, would you invest first in
Timeshare
your-
or?
No, a full,
Yeah, so again, I think it's a great excuse to go on a trip and check it out. I think the rule of thumb with investing in anything is the farther away it is, the less control you have over it.
right, these are friends.
So if you had people in that area that you knew that could recommend a property manager that
Yeah,
they had worked
they all
with
own there now,
before,
and they're like-
and then I think that now takes the risk away, and you go, okay, it's still some
Vegas,
risk, but I'm good.
yeah.
Yeah, we have our things properly managed.
Right.
But if I was buying overseas and I had to take care of everything,
Right, no.
or if
This is
it,
like a,
Still
friends
working
that
on
have before,
Yeah.
and I'm going,
Yeah.
I think I'm going in January to check it out.
yeah, and if it's a mature area that's already been built,
Yeah.
right now, you could go on any number of investment junkets into the Caribbean, and they will take all your money, and you'll never see a shovel hit the ground.
Right, no, these are,
Well, he said
Yeah.
he was gonna
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
but I think the issue with a lot of people that take these things is, okay, I have X amount of dollars. It's overwhelming for people that aren't numbers people to go, do I pay my mortgage, do I put my RT, TFSA, do I invest, like, so I don't do anything other than pay your taxes and make sure there's no debt.
Yeah.
It's that scary next, because it's a bit overwhelming.
It is, but here's where we go back to how we bridge this with the business planning stuff with real estate. So let's say you said, you know what, right now between what I've got coming in and what I've got going out, I just don't see it.
Right.
I want to just work with those numbers and that's comfortable for me. Then if I said to you, if we could, on a business plan, have you sell one more house a quarter, just a quarter, once every 3 months, could you do one more deal and then promise that that deal goes into an investment fund? At the end of the year, you'll have $100,000 sitting in that fund, right? So it's just a matter of breaking it into achievables. And I do, like, I want everybody in here to have their real estate businesses, and I want you to have $1 million in assets that help create a passive income for you.
I always thought when they said passive income, it was this whole recruiting, having people under you thing. So I kind of shut my mind off.
Yeah,
I didn't
no.
understand it was about investing. I didn't realize-
So let's do this, I don't want
I
to,
thought passive meant, when you
Yeah.
refer, and I'm like, oh.
Downline.
Yes, that's what I was.
so I'm gonna do one super quick thing, because
It's like where you put your money somewhere else in another vehicle that doesn't involve you working.
that's right,
I
yeah.
see,
it's-
okay.
that you get
That's
paid.
passive.
So a dividend is passive income,
Right,
right, on a
right.
stock.
Oh, yeah,
So-
yeah, I just thought when Keller said it, it was always.
Yeah,
down.
so let's take retirement very quickly. If you paid your house out, your principal residence, could you survive on $100,000 a year?
Yeah.
You guys
Yes,
could.
could be, that's it.
Yes.
Okay, so
You
let's,
guys need to do your budgets. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say,
Yeah.
I
But it's
beg
just
to
me.
differ.
It's just for one person,
Okay, okay, all
okay,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
then I could.
okay,
Okay.
so $100,000 a year is what you're going to want to come in. And let's pretend you have no RSPs, you have nothing that's gonna be paying you anything. So how much is that per month?
Nine,
969.
Say
oh
that's-
my God.
Let's say 9.6 per month.
Are you talking after tax or
Well,
before?
that's the thing before.
Well, we're now not working.
Okay, we're not working, all right.
Taxes are minimal.
We're just, all right.
So right now, what are rents per month on an average? Let's say,
2,400 bucks.
300,
Say
3,000?
25, 3.
Yeah.
3,000.
okay, so let's say $3,000 a month,
Well, 9,600 is 150,000.
and that's today. We're now talking 10 years from now when you retire.
It's nine, not 26.
$8,300 is under down.
Yeah. 83.
Okay, that's even better. So today's rents are $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
So are you going to likely, when you're retired, are you likely going to have any money coming in from Canada Pension or Ontario Pension?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
$1,000.
Okay, so let's go to income. So right now, the average person in Canada is at about $1,400 a month between OAP
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
and CPP. But let's say 1,000. And again, we're talking 10 years from now. Who knows what it's going to be or what it
But
isn't.
if we're not paying it now because we're self-employed, do we get it?
Did you ever pay into CPP?
Oh, yeah.
Of course you did.
Yeah, he's got that, he's got that.
Yeah. And you have the
Depends on your
choice.
account.
You have the choice right now. If your accountant isn't telling you to pay CPP,
Just that.
then I'm going to echo Lou's sentiments. You should be talking to lots of other accountants.
Yeah, you should be
I've
paying
never
CPP.
paid for
You-
14 years.
You have
I've
the
been
opportunity as an independent contractor to pay CPP voluntarily.
Keep paying.
And there's a huge advantage to doing that.
Unless you've been putting it
A,
into
it's a
investment.
tax advantage. B, it increases what you get monthly down the road. Okay, so we've got our pensions. Is your real estate business paying you any money after you stop working in it?
KW it is if you,
Could be,
you know.
could be. You could be getting
But
residual
mostly
income
no.
from something, but let's say no. Let's say you somehow get off the rails and you don't follow the model. So at that point, you've got $1,000 a month coming into pensions. You've got no other income. If you had, at this point, three properties. Now remember, you're buying them now. So when you retire,
You're paid off.
they're paid off or they're close to paid off. So what are they generating in rent?
Say,
Let's say, and again, these are all
9,000.
ridiculous numbers
It's
because
10, yeah.
if in 10 years rents haven't doubled, I'm gonna be stuck.
9,000.
Yeah.
So we're 9,000 in rent. So how are you doing in terms of hitting that $8,300 a month retirement?
You're already way over.
You're past it.
Mhm.
Now we add in, to go to the passive income, so you've got profit share, which all of you, from the time that you've hit your 3-year mark with Keller Williams, you can go anywhere you want. That's in perpetuity. So if over the next 3 years, you get 2 or 3 people in your profit share line, that's money that's going to be coming in. Right now, we're averaging about, it's about $1,000 a month. And that's with, I think we've got 3 people. We have not, in 10 years, put anywhere near the effort into this that we could have. So we've got 3 people in our line 1. So if you've got profit share, you've got that. If you've got any kind of RSP income, because now you've got to turn it into an RIF, and you've got to start pulling that out every month, and. There is, just by having 3 properties between now and when you retire, you've got your retirement covered, and everything else that's coming in is just bonus stuff. And
my friend.
that's assuming no other
That's,
investments.
I get it now. My friend Val Loverita, she's an agent at
Mhm.
TD. That's her whole thing.
Yeah,
Now,
that's why
if-
she has her duplex.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she bought
Or
it at
triplex.
8 something, it's now 3 point something million, and she's bought enough, you know, she's and put like tons into it and stuff. She goes, I could start working today. And she had this all out for me, and I was like, so she's like, you gotta do it. And I go, I can't.
Yeah, you
Because
can.
now it's not 875, those duplexes are 3. But I guess it's all.
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a duplex there. Go buy a
No, that's what
duplex
I'm
at
thinking, right? It's like going miss the
Dufferin
boat.
and Eglinton.
No, never.
In
For
front,
9.
yeah.
It doesn't matter where it is.
Doesn't matter
This is
where.
what I'm, yeah.
Because you're
If
not
it's
gonna
in
live there.
Toronto,
So there was one on Edith at 998, it was Jody's.
You should have bought
I,
it. You could buy it. Go buy
the
it.
offers were last night.
Will they go
It's-
for
But I
anyway.
actually, like, all weekend, I thought, oh, that would be so, it's around the corner, I could, like, and the
get your
rents
ducks in a
were.
row with Jason.
Yeah.
and then you're
I
ready.
just thought, how am I gonna do that?
You can do it.
Okay, so let's take it super simple, and then I
Brokerages
have to
don't
run.
do this for their-
I have to run.
No, they don't.
Um,
But Keller Williams.
Okay, so let's say hypothetically, 300,000 is what you'd have to put down on $1 million triplex.
Right.
Let's say hypothetically,
Right,
and that's gonna be a struggle.
right.
How many phone calls would you have to make to find 2 other people that would do it with you as partners, $100,000 each?
That's what you're, yeah, for sure, at least like.
'Cause in this room,
Crap, this is so
in this
exciting.
room, you could generate that.
I can stop working in like 5 years.
We'll take one year, that'll work your difference.
You might vote.
Right. So now for, you know, if you think about it in terms of the KW model, so you've got profit share, you've also got the opportunity on an ownership level for owner share, and you've got profit
You
share
guys are-
internationally. You've got all those other sources of
Well,
passive
that's
income.
I'm not
My
gonna say
daughter.
I'm smart, I'm not the engine behind that, it's Lou.
Yeah, but still smart.
He's the smarty pants.
So if you're now in the next 10 years also getting into an ownership opportunity with the KW office, now you've got owner profit share and agent profit share. You've then got the international growth share. You've got, if you're running your business the way we're teaching you to, you're stepping away from your business and it's still paying you. Now, it may be paying you 25% of what you make now, because the person you put in charge of it, you've said, let's do this, 75-25. But what's 25% of your business right now, this year?
Still good.
This-
100,000.
Right, you're already retired. So now we're talking legacy money. Now we're talking about your house is paid off, you've got $15,000 to $20,000 a month coming in, and you're doing nothing. Imagine if you were also, because you're super energetic, you're doing some coaching, or you're doing some whatever, or you got another business that
Right,
you
you
started.
never stop.
You're now running Jody's Maple Syrup Candy Shop up in,
Right.
like, any number of different things, right? So all I want to get across is, it's possible,
Possible.
do it, talk to Jason, talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant, but put a plan in place and then do it. Please.
Wish more people could come to this, here. I mean, it's a hard time of year, so.
As real estate agents, it's amazing how many real estate
Listen,
agents don't even
If I
own
get
property.
5, oh my gosh.
I know, we just started talking about it
Oh
with my
my
friends.
gosh,
I mean, number one goal
Just
when you
never
get
thought
into
I'd do
business
it.
is to get yourself a piece of real estate if you don't have one already.
Right.
Yeah,
And then along the years, you try to create more because you have to believe in the product that you're
I've
selling.
been doing it wrong, I've been trying to look for the man that has the property and then buying it.
Still look for that.
Go for the
Still look
property.
for that.
Still
Still something on your own.
don't wait for that minute.
Yeah, don't do that.
But the other thing that we didn't talk about inside this model, how many of these houses did you sell?
Right, that's,
Right? But the other side of this is,
When you're making
you're
the-
living in a house
right.
and you own to be, all we've talked about is passive income. You haven't sold one of these assets. All of those assets in your principal home now go to whoever you want them to go to. People, charities, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Other people's money.
Very cool.
Thanks, Philip.
Bravo.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Yes.